Hello there, and welcome to Fandalorian's Try Again, breakdown of Solo, a Star Wars story. Before I tear into this movie, I owe the creators of Solo an apology. And while they made a lot of ridiculous and idiotic decisions, and focused on stupid things, they were given an impossible task of making an epic movie out of Han Solo's backstory. So, Lawrence Kasdan, John Kasdan, and Richie Cunningham, I'm sorry you didn't have the backbone or imagination to make this movie what it needed to be. And what this movie needed to be, if it needed to be made at all, was a pointless nostalgia romp, where we, as the audience, get to sit there and geek out on watching Han Solo be cool for 2 hours. The things it didn't need, well, we're gonna get into that right now. So settle in, cause this is going to take a while. There's no opening crawl. Without an opening crawl, this can't be Star Wars. Not only was no one asking how Han Solo got his name, why would you think that Han Solo would let some Imperial officer name him? I always thought that Han Solo's name was just his name. But if anyone were to name Han Solo, it would be Han Solo. And Han would give himself the name Solo, because it sounds cool as hell. So Han Solo's an Imperial now, and we jump to 3 years later, where he's just a grunt in the military. The first thing I'd like to address is the 3-year time jump. From this point forward, Han Solo tells everybody that his mission in life is to get a ship and fly back to Corellia and rescue his girlfriend Kira. But you mean to tell me that in 3 years he never had any downtime? And at no point in those 3 years could he find the time to go rescue Kira without getting a ship? You'd think, being an Imperial, he'd be able to get around Corellia better, making a rescue easier. But back to Han Solo being a grunt soldier in the Imperial Army. I thought he wanted to be a pilot. He told that Imperial officer that named him he wanted to be a pilot. In fact, he tells everyone he meets in this movie that he's going to be a pilot. So why is he fighting on the ground? I know in the comic books that Han Solo becomes a TIE fighter pilot and then has an accident and is demoted. But we don't see this in the movie. And if it's not in the movie, it doesn't count. If Han Solo's going to be a pilot, show him piloting. Which brings us to the next problem. At no point in this movie is Han Solo shown as a good pilot. Han crashes this speeder in the beginning of the movie. During the heist job, this great character pilots the ship, not Han. When they're flying to Kessel, Lando and his sex robot fly the Falcon. And Han isn't even responsible for flying the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs. They downloaded this droid's rights activist into the Falcon, and essentially she flew it through the Kessel Run. And in the movie, they make it seem like every move the Falcon's ever made is due to this droid, not Han Solo's great flying. Back on the battlefield, Han Solo meets up with Beckett and his crew. My issue with this meeting is the reason Beckett and his crew are at this battle. They need a certain Imperial ship to help them with their next heist. That's all well and good, but why would you pick the middle of a battle to steal said ship? There has to be less life-threatening situations where you can procure an Imperial ship. This plan unnecessarily risks the lives of your crew before you even pull off the job. I don't believe that the middle of a battle is the only place you can get one of these ships. And I don't think Beckett is so stupid that he would put himself in harm's way when he can figure out a better way to find what he needs. So Han has to join Beckett's crew so he can get away from this battle and the Imperials. And Beckett does something I quite like. He goes to the commanding officer and tells him that Han Solo is the one trying to steal a ship, and Han is thrown in the brig. Now the part I don't like. Han Solo meets Chewbacca. That part I do like. What I don't like is Han Solo doesn't save Chewbacca. They both help each other break out of the prison and then get off the planet through Beckett. Without a life debt, why would Chewbacca stay with Han Solo? Being buddies is fine, but Chewbacca has a family out there. A Wookiee wouldn't abandon his family just to go parade around the galaxy with some guy he just met. Han Solo and Chewbacca's relationship revolves around a life debt. It's the only explanation why a 300-year-old honorable warrior would completely change his life and become a smuggler and criminal. And one more thing about Chewbacca. This movie tells us that Chewbacca eats people. I understand that the implication is that the Imperials aren't feeding him, so he eats people to survive. But it's an unnecessary component that makes Chewbacca seem more like a monster than the war hero he is. Then the nickname scene happens, and I've already gone over how stupid this is. Everyone already knows that when someone has a long name, it's easier to call them by a shortened version of that name. If your name's Thomas, I'm probably gonna call you Tom. This is something we've all known from a young age. We don't need a Star Wars movie to explain how nicknames work. Then as our heroes are sitting around the fire, Beckett takes apart a rifle, modifies it, and throws it at Han. And that's how Han Solo got his famous pistol. Again, why did we need to see this? This blaster is cool and everything, but it doesn't have any significance. It's just the gun that Han Solo uses. There's no need for a backstory. And as far as backstories go, this is a pretty lame one. Hey Han, where'd you get your gun? Some guy handed it to me. Where did you get your lightsaber? Oh, this belonged to my father. Which of those stories sounded more interesting? In the movie Tombstone, Wyatt Earp had a pretty badass gun that had his name on it and everything. Did we need to know where that gun came from? No, we didn't. We just knew that whoever Wyatt was going after was going to be in a lot of trouble. There's no reason for us to know about where Han Solo's gun came from. And if you're going to give a reason, give a personal reason. And then we come to the train heist. This is a pretty exciting action sequence. We get to see stormtroopers with magnetic boots hanging off the side of a train. We get to see our heroes in death-defying moments. The sequence is a lot of fun, but my question is, why is the Empire using a train? I mean, it's a real train, with tracks and everything. I think the Star Wars universe is a little beyond this technology. We already established in this universe that there are land speeders. Speeders that hover above the ground. And not only that, there are all sorts of spacecraft that can fly in and out of the atmosphere. A train on the tracks would be far less efficient than any of these other modes of transportation. It's just stupid that trains in the Star Wars universe would exist. After the train heist gets botched, Beckett informs Solo that they're now in debt to this gangster, Drayden Voss. So they go to see him to try to clear things up. And then, look who's here. It's Kira. What a small universe. Han Solo's whole life mission up until this point was to get back to Corellia and save Kira. Well, his mission's over. I'm not a fan of coincidences in a universe as big as the Star Wars universe. And not only does this make too big of a coincidence, it deprives Han Solo of his mission. Like I said, his goal was to save Kira. Now he has no reason for being here. His main objective solved itself. Now on to Lando Calrissian, and the issue I have with the bet he made with Han Solo. We meet Lando gambling at a sabacc table, and Han Solo sits down. Solo bets a ship that he doesn't have, and Lando wins the pot. Lando tells Han that Han can drop the ship off at Lando's shipyard. And then the crew approaches Lando and asks him to join. They need him to provide a ship, but the ship that Han Solo had bet and lost is never spoken of again. Lando just forgets about that debt in order to join the crew for an equal cut. It seems to me that Lando Calrissian got robbed, and it's never mentioned again. And next we meet L337, the biggest problem in this movie. And it's not because they tell us that Lando and a droid have sex with one another. It's because L337 is a droid rights activist. If droids are sentient beings, forced to work against their will, that means every hero in the Star Wars universe is a slave owner. And instead of droids being a helpful piece of technology that helps our heroes along the way, the heroes are forcing their will upon these droids. That means Luke Skywalker participated in the slave trade, and Anakin Skywalker built a slave. And it confirms that this cantina owner is a racist. The introduction of L337 into the Star Wars universe destroys the character of our former heroes. As I said before, this movie gives L337 credit for the Kessel Run, and implies that all of Han Solo's great piloting skills are really L337 inside the Falcon's computer. And Luke Skywalker wasn't an innocent farm boy. He was a slave trader and a slave owner. LL37 is the worst character in Star Wars history. Now we skip ahead a little bit. Our heroes have completed their mission and are now going to a desert planet to refine the fuel they stole. And then, oh no, it's Enfys Nest again. Enfys Nest is the criminal gang that ruined the train heist and got the whole crew killed. And now they're here again to rob Han Solo and his crew. But wait a minute, there's a plot twist. Enfys Nest is really a little girl who's picking up the mantle from her mother. You see, Enfys Nest needs the fuel to support a good cause. This whole character was created so Han Solo has to make a choice between doing what's right for him and the greater good. And this scene shows that Han Solo was helping the rebellion even before he knew it. And of course, Han Solo does help, even though it goes against his character. Han Solo is a self-centered criminal who cares only about money and himself. That is, until his friendship with Luke and Leia make him care about more. With young Han Solo being a good guy from the start, it makes the character development in A New Hope completely pointless. This is a scene from Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, where the heroes bump into Dr. Evazan and Ponda Baba. It was the most shoehorned in and comically pointless scene I've ever seen in a movie, and goes far beyond fan service. I say was, because guess who Kira's been working for all this time? None other than Darth Maul. Now if you haven't seen the cartoons, this is going to be pretty shocking to you. Shocking and nonsensical, because Darth Maul obviously died in the Phantom Menace. But now here he is, running a criminal organization. And for no reason at all, he ignites his double lightsaber. It's the most cheesy fan service you'll ever see. The scene is so out of place, I don't know whether it's funny or just sad. And finally, we get to the dice. I was fortunate enough to be born in the late 70s, and I got to see Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi in the movie theater. I've seen all 3 of the original trilogy countless times. So in episode 8, The Last Jedi, when Luke Skywalker hands Leia Han Solo's dice, I couldn't help but think to myself, what dice? In 40 years, I haven't heard any mention of any dice. Then I checked the interwebs, and sure enough, there were always gold dice hanging from the Millennium Falcon. They're so tiny, you can barely see them. Then I started to wonder why they made such a big deal out of such an obscure prop. Then came Solo, a Star Wars story, and there are the dice hanging in Han Solo's rearview mirror. And again I wonder why they're making such a big deal about these dice. After Han crashes his car, he makes sure he grabs the dice. When Han and Kira are separated, Han gives Kira the dice to prove he's coming back for her. These dice that apparently have been with Han almost his whole life get no explanation in this movie. We see how Han gets his blaster, but not how he gets these dice. As far as I was concerned, these dice didn't exist in Solo until The Last Jedi and Solo, a Star Wars story, made such a big deal out of them. These movies told us that these dice were very precious to Han, and they never tell us why. I'd rather see that than see Han Solo figure out how nicknames work. Alright, I'm done bitching about this movie. I hope you liked my version better. And sorry this video is so long. There was a lot to bitch about. Anyway, the video's over. You can turn it off now. Goodbye.
Kiss a Wookiee, kick a droid, fly the Falcon through an asteroid till the princess is annoyed. This is spaceships, it's monsters, it's Star Wars, we love it. Kiss a Wookiee.